Here's June 2015, 25 to 28. So 25 says, graph the function y equals absolute value of x minus 3 on the set of axes below. So if you have a graphing calculator, what you need to do is type into y equals the absolute value, and in order to get to the absolute value, you need to hit the math key on your calculator. Okay, and then you're going to scroll over to num, and you're going to choose the first option, which should say abs, for absolute value. Inside those absolute values, you're going to type in x minus 3. And if you do that, and you look at your table, you should be able to see a pattern. And so when you look at this pattern, you should have something like this, where you have maybe x, let's start x at 0. Okay, so 0, 3, 1, 2, 2, 1, 3, 0, 4, 1, 5, 2, 6, 3. Hopefully you see a pattern like this, and it's all centered around your vertex of 3, 0. If you didn't have a graphing calculator, the nice thing about this problem is that it's easy to find your y values without a graphing calculator. Okay? So if I use the same x values, 0, 1, 2, 3, etc., etc., we'll just do a couple examples to show you. To find the y, all I do is I plug my x value into the equation. So if I say absolute value of 0 minus 3, I'll end up with absolute value of negative 3. But if you recall, the absolute value symbol turns anything inside of it positive. So if it is positive, it stays positive, and if it's negative, it turns into a positive. So that becomes positive 3. So we'll try maybe one more just to show you. The absolute value of x minus 3, so now we have 1, so 1 is going to replace our x. So we have absolute value of 1 minus 3, and that's equal to absolute value of negative 2, which again, because it's in the absolute value, it will change it to a positive 2. Okay, just like our table shows. So let's graph these points, and so we have 0, 3, so 0 in the x, 3 in the y, 1 in the x, 2 in the y, 2, 1, 3, 0, 4, 1, 5, 2, 6, 3. And when you connect the dots, you should have a nice V, and it goes on forever, both directions, like such. So that is the equation, y equals absolute value of x minus 3. Whenever you're graphing an absolute value function like this, you will end up with a V. Okay? Not a parabola, it's not a U shape, it has to be that V shape. So then the second part of this problem says, explain how the graph of y equals absolute value of x minus 3 has changed from the related graph of y equals the absolute value of x. So if you typed in the absolute value of x and you wanted to look at the table and then in turn graph, let's actually put it up here so we have room. So let's look at the table of the absolute value of x. Okay? So let's look at the same values. How about 0? So when x is 0, y is 0. When x is 1, y is 1. When x is 2, y is 2. When x is 3, y is 3. So we have 0, 0, 1, 1, 2, 2, 3, 3. And if I look at the negative values, negative 1 will be a positive 1, negative 2 is a positive 2, negative 3 is a positive 3. And so here is our graph of y equals absolute value of x. Okay, it says explain how the graph of y equals absolute value of x minus 3, that's my red graph, has changed to the graph of y equals the absolute value of x. Okay? And so the absolute value of x minus 3, so y equals absolute value of x minus 3 has shifted 3 units to the right compared to y equals the absolute value of x. Okay? And if you remember from horizontal and vertical shifts, the number inside the parentheses, or in this case the number inside the absolute value, is a horizontal shift, and it's always the opposite with horizontal. If it's subtracting, you're going to the right. If you're adding, you're going to the left. Number 26. Alex is selling tickets to a school play. An adult ticket costs $6.50 and a student ticket costs $4. Alex sells X adult tickets and 12 student tickets. Write a function f of x to represent how much money Alex collected from selling tickets. So they tell you that it's a function f of x. That's what you should start with. F of x equals. So if we look at the cost of an adult ticket, that's $6.50. And that's going to multiply how many adult tickets you sold, x, plus you sold 12 student tickets for the cost of $4 each, so 12 times 4. So your simplified equation would be 6.50x plus, when I multiply 12 times 4, I get 48. And this is all you have to do. Make sure you read the problem. It doesn't ask you to solve for how many tickets. It just tells you to write a function to represent how much money Alex collected from selling tickets. Okay? Number 27. John and Sarah are each saving money for a car. The total amount of money John will save is given by the function f of x equals 60 plus 5x. The total amount of money Sarah will save is given by the function g of x equals x squared plus 46. After how many weeks x will they have the same amount of money saved? Explain how you arrived at your answer. Okay, so what we have here is two equations, and we need to figure out where they are equal. So for figuring out where they're equal, we need to set them equal to each other. So we have 60 plus 5x will equal x squared plus 46. So in order to solve, I need to get everything to one side. So I'm going to subtract 5x, and there's nothing to combine 5x with, so I'll just put it off to the side. And at the same time, I'm going to subtract 60, just to save some room. So I'm left with x squared minus 5x minus 14 equals 0. Now there's a couple different ways I can solve. I can factor, which is quicker typically, or I can use the quadratic formula. And I'm going to choose to factor. So when I factor this, it's a trinomial where a is 1, because here's my a value. And I need to figure out what two numbers multiply to negative 14, but also add up to a negative 5. And if I think about it, it's negative 7 and positive 2. Those are my factors. So I'm going to write those in my parentheses. Now to solve for x, to find the roots, I'm going to set each of these factors equal to 0. And now I can solve. So to get x alone, I'm going to add 7 to both sides. So x must equal 7. Or my other answer, subtract 2 for both sides to get x alone. X equals negative 2. So if you're talking about how many weeks, you can't have a negative amount of weeks. We are going to reject this negative answer. We're going to keep the positive version. So there are 7 weeks. Okay, that's how many weeks that they will have the same amount of money saved. That's how many weeks it will take. Number 28, if the difference is multiplied by 1/2 x squared. What is the result written in standard form? So first I'm going to subtract. And there's a couple different ways you could do this, okay? What you could do is change this subtraction into an addition equation. So to do that, we're going to take -1 and distribute it to every term inside the parentheses. So it's really 3x squared minus 2x plus 5, and then we'll be subtracting x squared, subtracting 3x, and adding 2. Okay, so I'm really adding this equation now. So now I can just combine like terms. So I have 3x squared plus a -x squared, so that gives me 2x squared. Then I have a -2x and a -3x, and when I add those together, I will end up with a -5x, and I have a +5 and a +2, and when I add those together, I end up with a +7. So I'm not quite done. I have to multiply the result by 1/2 x squared. So all I'm going to do is put this in parentheses, and out in front, I'm going to write 1/2 x squared, and now I just have to distribute to every single term. So when I do that, I will end up with x to the 4th, okay, because 1/2 times 2 is just 1, so if you wanted to write a 1 in front of x to the 4th, that's fine. And remember, when we multiply, we add exponents, so x to the 4th minus 5 over 2x cubed plus 7/2 x squared. Okay, this is how I would write my final answer. If you prefer decimals, your answer would look like this: x to the 4th minus 2.5 x cubed plus 3.5 x squared. Either answer is acceptable, okay? Either or.